original series, Welcome to the Tea Party, beginning Wednesday only on CNN.
So they don't consider themselves Republican or Democrat, and their ranks are growing. But who are the independent voters getting credit for electing everyone from President Obama to the new Republican senator from Massachusetts? Here's a quick look from our political director, I should say, Paul Steinhauser. Paul?
One question often asked is, just how many people are truly independent? In every CNN and Opinion Research Corporation poll that we conduct, we always ask, politically, do you consider yourself a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent? In our most recent survey from a week ago, 42% of those we questioned describe themselves as independent, 32% call themselves Democrats, and 26% say they're Republicans. Now, let's break that down. Of those 42% who say they're independents, 14% say they're independents who lean towards Democrats. Another 19% say they lean towards the GOP. That leaves 9% of the public who say they are independents with no partisan preference. Another important point, people, including independents, change their minds.
In the past 12 months, the number of men who call themselves independents has gone up, but the number of independent women has remained the same. Possibly as a result of that, independents are now more conservative than they were last January.
Why do we spend so much time talking about independents? That's simple. They matter. While they don't always swing elections, recently they have. Independents helped Barack Obama win the White House in 2008. But it was a very different story last November when they helped the Republicans capture 2 democratically held governor's seats in Virginia and New Jersey. And of course, they helped the GOP pull off a big upset in this month's Senate election in Massachusetts.
Thank you very much for that, Paul Steinhauser. Now, let's go beyond the poll numbers and talk about who these independents really are, Omar Ali is in Baltimore tonight. He is an assistant professor of African-American history at Townsend University. Nicole Kurokawa is in Washington tonight. She's a registered independent and a senior policy analyst with the Independent Women's Forum in D.C. And Joe Gandelman joins us from San Diego. He is the editor-in-chief of the Moderate Voice blog. Thank you so much. So listen, I'm going to be politically correct here, and I'll start with the lady. Nicole, listen, so I'm reading about you, and it says that you advise Young Conservative Coalition, though you deny that you are all that young or all that conservative. You look pretty young to me. You voted reluctantly for John McCain in 2008, but you did not agree with his policies, but felt he'd be better on the economy than Barack Obama at the time, wasn't president then, and you're from Illinois, you didn't vote for him. So listen, if you do all these conservative things, then what makes you not a conservative? Is it just, are you just an independent entitled?
I am fiscally conservative, but unfortunately the Republicans have strayed from that in the past several years, and I just feel entirely betrayed by them. So I think I can adhere to a fiscal conservative message and still not agree with the party as a whole.
So you feel entirely betrayed by the Republican Party over the last couple of years, you said?
Absolutely, and I think they're, socially, I don't agree with their platform at all.
Okay. So Omar, that brings us to our next question then, because there are some who say, there are some people who don't believe that there are independent voters, and that independent voters are just the people who are not happy with the current party in power.
Independents make up 40% at least, as the CNN polls say 42%, but steadily 40%. That's millions of Americans. It's not just individuals who are disgruntled with what's going on. It's a movement that's been out there and been gathering steam for upwards of 20 years. The question right now is really a question of the parties versus the people versus the parties. Americans feel disenchanted with party politics, and President Obama in his State of the Union address was basically addressing that. But he hasn't gone far enough in taking real issues that could actually open up the process, make it more democratic, so that we get through the partisan gridlock that we're dealing with right now. So there are real issues that independents have been dealing with, whether they should form a party, whether they should work with Fusion, should they be inclusive, is it just angry white men, or are there different kinds of independent voices? What kinds of structural reforms are needed to open up our political process?
Omar, I'm glad you said that, because I heard when we were researching this story, I heard someone, a white woman, say that. I mean, that's what she said. Well, it's basically angry white men, so you bring up a very good point there. Can you expound on that just a little bit?
I would love to. Basically, the independents are across the political spectrum. They identify in all kinds of ways, fiscally conservative, socially liberal, whatever. But they are also of different categories, demographic groups. So young people tend to be much, much more independent than older people. But one of the interesting things is how independent actually the African American electorate really is. Right now, upwards of 30% of African Americans identify themselves as independent. That's something that's not talked about. And that's very important because how Barack Obama got elected was through an alliance of independent white voters and African Americans who are increasingly trying to remove themselves, get rid of that tether to the Democratic Party. And so there's an alliance that's coming together that's been building over many years. So independents make up a lot of people, and there are different kinds of people across America.
I want to let Joe come in on this. Joe, you can respond to what any of your fellow independent voters had to say, or you can answer this question for me. I've heard that independent voters are just people who can't make up their minds.
Oh, I totally disagree about that. I think independent voters, they may change their minds. There's a difference between not being able to make up your mind and changing your mind. In other words, independent voters are always, my experience, both myself and people that I know that are independent voters, they're constantly evaluating. They're constantly looking at the policies or evaluating the statements. I think that many independent voters are absolutely, totally turned off by the right-left talk radio political culture in this country right now. That's why when Obama went to speak before the House Republicans, it put him in a setting where he was able to answer in substance and actually have a really engage in responses that involve nuance. To political partisans, nuance is a dirty word. Well, to many independent voters, consensus is excuse me, I got that wrong. To political partisans, consensus is often a dirty word, but to political independence, consensus is extremely important, that people are working to try to find solutions to problems, not just simply win elections and score political points.
Well, Joe, hold that thought, because I thought the same thing as I watched President Obama speak in front of House Republicans in Baltimore the other day at their retreat, and I said, why can't it always be this way? And I think a lot of younger people, a lot of people in my demographic and even younger wonder, why do you have to belong to a certain party? Why do you have to be a Democrat or a Republican? Why can't you just be you and vote on the issues?
It's come down to the point now in this country where they're really not political parties anymore. It's the same as a sports team. It's like the Super Bowl.
Oh, do you think it's antiquated, it's outdated, and something that we will eventually move beyond?
I think political parties will be here, but I'm very, very troubled over the tone of discourse in this country. John Avalon of CNN has that great book, Wingnuts, coming out that pretty much documents it. I think political parties will be here in the form that they're here right now, but you almost shudder when you project where political parties are now and the way they're heading, with the quality of debate, whether people are talking about substance, really trying to solve problems, or whether the whole point is to try to do a gotcha on a news cycle, particularly with the blogosphere, which is getting more and more important as people turn away from reading newspapers.
It appears that way because everyone gets so focused on, I can't do this because that's what Republicans will do. I can't support this because that's what the Democrats will do, or because that's what Barack Obama supports. And it just seems sort of antithetical, getting anything solved, that nothing happens. So, Nicole, listen, Omar brings up a good point. He talked about African Americans. African Americans are usually pretty socially conservative on some issues, and especially issues that relate to God, gay marriage, and what have you, abortion, all those things are pretty conservative. He brings up a good point about how the president got elected. Even women now, I understand, becoming more independent voters, turned off by both parties.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I think there are a lot of issues that appeal to women across the board that the president is not addressing, though. I think we could start talking about transparency. That's an issue that appeals to everybody, and it's just an issue that has been dropped, unfortunately. I think people are absolutely sick of the partisan rancor, but women can be reached. Women need to be treated like every other voter. Women care about the economy. Women care about health care. Women don't just care about abortion. So I think, a concerted effort needs to be made by the White House to include us in all these negotiations.
I wonder if there's a certain trait about something that, maybe the anger or being a minority of some sort, African American, Hispanic, or woman that makes people, attracted to becoming an independent rather than joining a certain party.
Well, if I could get in here for just
real
a second.
quickly, I have to get to a break, but if you can make it real quick.
In some ways, if people are angry and there's no vehicle for people to express that anger, we have a troubling situation. And President Obama could do some very concrete things right now to open up the process so that these two major parties don't have so much control, because people feel like they're stuck between one or the other. Okay. So you can have more open primaries across the country. You could include independents in the Federal Election Commission. There are very concrete things that President Obama could do beyond just stating that the partisan bickering is troublesome.
And Omar Ali, thank you so much. That'll have to be the last word. Also, Nicole Kurokawa. and also Joe Gandelman. We appreciate it. I want you guys to come back. It was a very interesting conversation. I really like that.
Would love to.
Well, thank you very much.
I want to tell you the curtain is about to go up on the Grammy Awards tonight. The excitement